Hello, seminary friends. I wanted to talk a little bit about grades in seminary, not whether or not we should have them, but some ideas to help you give a grade because you'll need to put an A, B, or C grade, not a passing, none of those things, into the grade book at the end of the semester. So first off, I do not personally think grades should have to do with anything to do with how you get credit in seminary. These are the 4 things you must do to get credit in seminary. You need to read the book that you're studying that year, pass both learning assessments. You need to attend 75% of classes held. If you're in an online or home study class, complete 75% of the assigned assignments. And they need to get an ecclesiastical endorsement to get a certificate of completion or graduation. So, what do we grade off of? Here's what I've done, and these ideas I've gathered over the years from friends, and you might have some others to add. First off, I do have assignments and quizzes in seminary. Second, reading consistency. Third, class participation effort. And fourth, doctrinal mastery. I'll break down each of these 4 using a grade card that I have for my students. I print this out on cardstock, and every Friday we pull it out and we mark things pertaining to grades, as well as whenever we do some doctrinal mastery things in class. So first, quizzes and assignments. Here's a list of different assignments that I've given. So I give my students a devotional planning sheet where they need to fill out their thought ahead of time to kind of help them practice giving thoughts. General conference assignment, they have to watch a session and take notes on it, turn that in. A sheet that I have them fill out to help me get to know them. Some other things that you see there. This last one is if you ever have your students prepare and teach a 5-10 minute segment, the preparation, what they put together to help present, I have them turn that in sometimes for a grade. Okay. Second of is reading consistency. So I want my students to get in the habit of reading every day. And so I have them pick a time goal, not a chapter, not a section, but a time goal. And usually that's been a class goal. Everybody in class, let's shoot for 10 minutes. 10 minutes in that particular book. Now this year you might have students say, I want to read the Book of Mormon too. Great. So do 15 minutes and 10 minutes in the Doctrine and Covenants, 5 minutes in the Book of Mormon. You can either let students choose their own time goal or have a class time goal, but I would stay away from so many pages, so many chapters, etc. Pick a time goal. And then make sure that time goal is going to allow them to finish the Doctrine and Covenants. So 1 verse is awesome, but you're not going to finish the Doctrine and Covenants. So how could you increase that? Then what they do every Friday is they mark their progress. How many days this week did you keep your goal? And they mark those off, color them in. Third thing is class participation effort. Every week they get 4 points. So on Friday they pull out this card and it's a self-evaluation as to how they did. Were they on time every day? They get a point for that. Are they in their scriptures, reading, marking, following along? They get a point for that. Are they adding things that they're learning in class? Are they participating? Are they raising their hand? Are they adding to the Spirit there? That's 1 point. Lastly, they get a point if they're smart with technology and do not allow it to be a distraction. So they get 4 points. So then they slowly add up their points. Total for the end of the semester will be 68 points here. So it's a self-evaluation. Fourth is doctrinal mastery. For every scripture, there's 15 scriptures covered on the first assessment. So that's why there's 15 here, and there's 4 points each, so a total of 60 points. Now, how do they get points for doctrinal mastery? First, they mark the doctrinal mastery scripture distinctly in their scriptures and write the topic related to it. So, for example, here I have outlined in blue the doctrinal mastery scripture, and I've written DM, ordinances and covenants, right there. Okay, so they get a point if they do that. Second of all, I want them to identify the key statement of doctrine. You might be wondering what that is. Well, you need to turn to the core document that's often in the student study journal, and under 7.2 under ordinances and covenants, we find one of these scriptures. So, for example, you look at the scripture. This is not the same, but you go to that topic that is pertaining. So here is ordinances and covenants, and I look for that scripture in parentheses. Now, the sentence immediately before that parenthesis is the key statement of doctrine. This is what the brethren want the youth to understand out of that verse. Not to be misconstrued a different way, but this is the doctrine we want them to be able to answer questions, think about, and talk about. So that phrase right there. So I want them to mark that, and if they mark that in their core document, they get a point. Third has to do with teaching and explaining. Now, most of these scriptures I will cover in my Doctrinal Mastery teacher materials where I have practice exercises where students teach one another. For others, I'm going to need to create opportunities for them to explain meaning of what those mean to fellow students. And so once we do those practice exercises, we mark a point off there. Lastly, towards the end of the semester, as we've reviewed across the semester, I'm going to give them a test. It'll be all 15, and I will give them the phrase, and they need to write for me the book, which is easy this year, chapter and verse. So book is worth 1 point, chapter is worth 1, verse is worth 1. That's how I've done it in the past. So they need to tell me Doctrine and Covenants 636. I want to have them to memorize those throughout the year, working on them. One app the church has provided is the Doctor Mastery app. Download it there, and particularly in flashcards, you can review those things. Okay. Now, one other thing on my grade card to help with completion, there's no grade attached to this, but it's helping them mark off their progress. And so this is what they need to read in the first semester. And you'll notice there's 16 gray boxes here. And so every box is a Sunday in the first half of the semester. So this is September 2nd Sunday, September 9th Sunday, September 23rd, September 30th. So, for example, on Friday when we're marking our grade cards, so we'll be marking our grade cards on the 28th of September, because that's the Sunday the 30th. I'll say, okay, everyone, you need to be to Doctrine and Covenants 19 by September 30th to be on track to complete the semester, to complete the reading for this semester. So those are the Sundays, and those are the grade out boxes there. I will also ask my students to mark their reading in the LDS Seminaries and Institutes app and my seminary, whichever one they have. Mostly, I'm going to point them to the app. And then these same 16 boxes are marked here. So it's something for them to mark off once a week on the app. Again, that has to do with reading. Every time we mark the grade cards, we talk about reading, we track their progress. Sometimes I have them turn their grade cards in if they're not marking on the app. I just need to know where they're at so I can encourage them to get caught up. Talk about reading weekly, because it's the number one reason students do not get credit for the first semester. Okay? How do we figure out the grades? We've talked about what we can grade off of. How do we figure out the grades? On the back of the sheet, I have this page. Okay? So let's figure out the grade for assignments and quizzes here. Let's suppose I put in these assignments written here. So devotional planning sheets. This is where my students prepared and taught about the war chapters. They had to memorize the books of the Book of Mormon. And so these are things that they got scores on. They've been writing these scores in on their grade card here. They tally up their points down here. And so if they have a point total between 234 and 260, they get an A. So they write their A right there. Okay, then they come down here, and A is worth 10 points. So they put 10 points right there. Okay, let's look at daily reading. So they tally up their days read, and if they've read 90% or better, they get an A. If 80% or better, they get a B. So in this case, I only got 80% or better. The student marked off that much, so they'll come over here and put a B right here, and then 8, because that's how many points a B is worth. Here, let's look at class participation and effort. So on this, they're going to add up their points for each week, and it's out of 68. So if they fall between those, they have an A. And so you put the letter grade here and the points there. So let's look at Doctor Mastery. Okay, they add up their points, 4 points for each scripture out of 60. So there is where they figure their grade. They put their grade here and the point total there. Now, what do we do to figure the grade? So we take those points, we add them up, and we're at 38. Then you look at this box down here and say above 36 is an A. So I have them turn their grade card over to the front side, and right here they write their final grade as an A. So that's how I use this grade card and what I grade off of for grades in seminary. If you have any other best practices or ideas to help with this conversation, please comment below.